72%. 72% of people living in China today, in 2014, don't know how to read or write. Think about what it was like in the 60s when I remember when I took my CZM, it was unbelievable. And then I took my bac. It was a big fight for a whole week. I was the first one to get my bac oriented. Life was simple. It was beautiful. It was great. You know, we had our sheep. We had our little Nazi become later in life. The tools that would make me, and these are not my words, successful. They just helped me. I had no idea that, for instance, being one of, you know how many brothers and sisters I have? I don't know. There are so many. I forgot. My father was married more than once. His first two wives died in the French. You know, my father was one of those without leave. So each time he was left with 4 or 5 children. I was, a couple of deceased now. I'm one of 15 children. And it's great because now I have so many nieces and nephews. I came back in 2011 and people were, "Hey, you look like who you?" You look familiar. You look like someone, but I don't know. I escaped it. And that's why you hear today, parents says, "Oh, we were so much because in our day, you kids today have all this stuff." It's an inconvenience. It's a disadvantage. It's a great thing to have parents that love us, that care for us, but overdoing it has resulted in bringing up children today following just because. The answer is just because. I don't really know. My youth, my experience that I was just telling you about, allowed me to ask that question. And I never really knew. It wasn't by design, as I told you, it just happened. And later in life, and I'm going to fast forward because it was a movie, I'm in my 20s and 30s and 40s and living 6,000 kilometers away. And being able to answer the why. Why do I do what I do? Provided me the armor that I needed to succeed. Yes, I don't want to lie to you. I consider myself someone that has accomplished almost all of his goals. And that's exactly now where I want to begin with this today. You read about and you see people that are successful. And you say, "Oh, I want to be like that. I want to have that big house. I want to drive that car. I want to be the chief executive officer of my company." Those are dreams. Those are wonderful dreams to have. But those should not be the final objective. Those should be a means to your final objective. My advice, and this is based on my own experience and watching and studying those who have defined their final objective by anything that is measured quantitatively, an amount of money, a number of years of education, a specific diploma, that is nothing but a tool, that is nothing but a stepping stone. Instead, ask, why do I want to get there? How do I want to get there? The what question should be the last question. You should ask, what do I want to be? Begin with yourself. Your world consists of 3 little circles. The first one is you. The middle one is your immediate You study people like Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi. You study people who have contributed to this world. And I'm not talking about people who are millionaires. In my opinion, they're not successful. You look at people whose legacy is talked about for centuries. They are people who begin from the inside out. They took the opposite direction and worked on themselves first. From the prophet Muhammad till today, 1400 and however many years. Even before that. It isn't until you ask, why do I do what I do, then that you begin to actually take your first step to success. People who do that do things differently than the rest of us. They think differently and they act differently. They think differently and they act differently. They don't base everything they do on what they learn in books. What they learn in books, like I said earlier, is a tool. It's knowledge. But if we're not careful, that system that is built, that we all live in, the educational system, if we limit everything we do by what we learn in the classroom, what is it that your teachers teach you, your parents teach you? Not to make mistakes. Correct? We learn not to make mistakes. We spend our entire life walking around making sure that we don't slip, that we don't fall. We spend our entire life avoiding failure. Let me tell you something that may surprise you. That's the biggest mistake. Spending your life avoiding failure, I translate it in other terms. It means spending your life avoiding risks. And if you don't know what it tastes like, you'll never know what its success tastes like. It isn't until you take risks, it isn't until you fail and fail again, that you'll understand the meaning of what it means to succeed. It isn't until you fall and scrape your elbows and your knees that you know what it means to get to the end line. You have no idea. You would be living a passive life. Confucius, a Chinese philosopher you've heard from thousands of years ago, once said, glory goes to those who have fallen and got nothing, and never to those who have never fallen. Who do I want to lead me tomorrow to battle? Who do I want to lead me out of a political crisis, out of a financial crisis? Those who know what it's like not to have, or those who always have had what they need? That is the question that you need to think about. I'm sure as I look around, I see young faces, eager, wanting to do well, ready to do battle, all of you. I think most of you know the meaning of sacrifice. Most of you know the meaning of having to give up on things. Most of you know what it's like to get up early in the morning, even though you've had little sleep. Most of you know what it's like, to walk for 3 kilometers to come to school when others are riding by you in a beautiful car, heated. Most of you know what it's like to get to school in the morning when your hands are so cold that you can't hold on to the pen. I can go on and tell you stories. That is what makes successful people successful. So, it's easy to have a nice pathway to success if we define success in terms of money. You have to ask yourself the question, why did I get up this morning? If you got up this morning to to get a diploma and then get a nice job and make X thousand dinars per salary per month. You need to rethink why you're doing what you're doing. If you got up this morning to work on yourself, define who you are, what are your values in this world? Why do you exist? What would happen to this world if you were not around? If the answer is nothing, then you too need to rethink why you exist. I was fortunate in those early years to accomplish your goal. Not the shoes you wear, the car you drive, the house you live in. Take it from me, I know. I've had both, and I've had none. And there were times I've had everything that I thought was important in life, and it turned out to be insignificant. I've succeeded when I thought success was money. And I failed when I thought failure was money. And I woke up one day, and I was the same person. But throughout all of that, I maintained one thing: my values. The things that I believed were the right ingredients for me to succeed. Yes, I went to Harvard University. I went and I rubbed shoulders with some of the most important people that you've heard of. And I'm friends with them, and I exchange emails with them. And I've been to places only few people wish they could be, in terms of power and politics. And that was not because of my diploma. That was because of the things that are important to me, my values, what I consider are important things. There are people who I went to school with that chose to go the path of monetary gains. And yes, they are making $2 or $3 million a month in salary without having to work. They define that as success. It's happened twice, in the 1990s and in 2007, where these people, because they decided they focused on the outside, have suffered setbacks in their lives. The financial crisis of the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s, it almost happens every decade. And each time it happened, these people didn't know how to get back up again. They had no core. They had no values. They never worked on themselves. They defined success by how many zeros were next to that number on their checking account. Others define success by how many people do we touch whose lives we change. How many people? And this is the question I ask myself, and I'm being honest with you. Every night when I put my head on my pillow, how many times did I put a smile on someone's face today? How many young kids have I taught something new, a tool that they tomorrow can use to help someone else? Oh, don't take me wrong. I think money is important. And I am the best negotiator in deals, in contracts. But money does not drive me. And that is why today I am happier than most of my friends who I went to school with, who are now working in Wall Street, making 10 times more than I am making. But when I put my head on my pillow, I can't wait to get up the next day. Because I know the next morning I'll be looking at a classroom or visiting some school in the middle of Gasrin or Gaza or somewhere, looking at a bunch of young kids who I know tomorrow will be the future Olympics, who I know tomorrow they too will be dedicating themselves to making someone else's life better. All of this doesn't come easily. It requires hard work. Sometimes it's a result of desperation, as was the case for me. I'm not an success in school wasn't due to the fact that I was brilliant. It was due to persistence. And so, regardless of your wishes and your values, there is something to be said for hard work. There is something to be said for dedication. There is something to be said for sacrifice. So in addition to having value and having an objective, in addition to knowing why you exist in this world and asking yourself the why question, you have to be able and have to be willing to make the sacrifice. You have to do the hard things. You do the tough things that no one else wants to do. Make those tough decisions. And they are sometimes unpopular decisions. You have to come to class when staying in bed is so nice, especially in a cold night. You have to think of your own and sometimes make your own mind instead of accepting someone else's orders as facts. Find your own way. Answer your own questions. Don't accept the truth because no one has the absolute truth. No one has the right on it. Be convinced. Don't make that next step until you answer that question as to why am I doing what I'm doing. Toughest decisions are always the toughest ones to make. They're the easiest ones to walk away from. They're tough decisions. Oh, no one wants to touch them. I'm not going to be the one. Look at the people who we today consider successful people. Think of anyone. Thomas Edison, you're all in technology. Did he just walk away the first time, his first, the second, and third, and 9,999 times? He didn't succeed. He didn't walk away. He made the decision to dedicate himself because he wanted to know why was not that experiment working. Abraham Lincoln ran for president 11 times and lost 11 times. Successful. And I hate to use that word successful. People who have affected our lives. Let's redefine that in a way, in a positive way. Don't always follow the rules that we need to follow. They ask the why question. And if they're not convinced with the answer, they don't do it. This young lady on her computer, if it weren't for Bill Gates, she probably wouldn't be on her computer today. A guy who dropped out of Harvard University. Because when he asked the question why, he wasn't happy with the answer. Another guy who got kicked out of Harvard University allowed they could connect on Facebook every night. These were considered unusual. How can you drop out of Harvard University? I spent 5 years trying to get in. The guy drops out. It did not answer the why for him. There are over 250,000 applications every year that come to Harvard University. Young, brilliant kids. All of them think that they are brilliant from all over the world. The business school receives nearly 20,000 applications a year, graduate school. They accept about 200. These people walk away from it because they had something bigger than their happiness. There are many people who walk around with that diploma, that master's degree from Harvard University, and don't take me wrong, it does open a lot of doors. Okay, it opens a lot of doors. But they weren't satisfied with that because it did not give them the tool necessary to contribute. Bill Gates wanted to build something unique and different. And that is, hey, you all know you're in Sup'Com, you're all in telecommunication. The internet has been around since World War II. The U.S. Army was using it since World War II. But no one thought about connecting all the people together And by doing so, that means everyone has to have a computer. And until Bill Gates and Alan, I can't remember his name, his buddy there from Sun Microsystems, built this application that allowed them to do so. You know, the point that I'm trying to make is that you need to find the why answer and follow it. Because you have two choices. You could follow diplomas and money and so forth and so on. And that's a dead end. You may be successful for 10, 15, 20 years. But if you only follow that, you may be one of the 200, one or two out of the 100 that is successful and happy. But most people who follow only that, because they define their life with a diploma and money, it is not that sustainable. It is not that long term. It does not last. Because all of a sudden, the more you make, the more you need. But if you define your life with values, why do I do what I do? And why is that important to me and to the people around me? Work from the inside up. Touch the people that are closest to you. Make a difference in their lives. With your diplomas, with being smart students, with developing applications that help people. You know, today you're all in telecommunication. You're all, you know, you can develop applications. You can do all kinds of things with technology. So I just wanted to be clear. What I'm saying to you is, yes, your education is absolutely important. But put it to use in a way that doesn't say, okay, I'm going to go work for that company because it pays $200 million more per month than that. Yes, it might be so. But you also might be a miserable bastard in about 2 years and you're going to quit that job. Because you're not doing it for the right reasons. I want to tell you a story. Actually, two stories. About that I've used these examples to make the point of why it's important to do what we like to do as opposed to doing something for other reasons. People who ask why and people who don't ask why. In technology, I don't know if you know or if you've come across this name, Samuel Langley. Does that name ring a bell? Samuel Langley was a scientist in the late 19th century, early 20th century, who taught at the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. I'm talking late 1800s. And he had a Harvard seat. I mean, he was someone who was well-connected, knew everyone, one of the top scientists in the world at the time. As a matter of fact, they named Langley after him. Does Langley mean anything to you guys? That's where the CIA is. That building, that place, is named after this guy. Samuel Langley, the Department of Defense in the United States, back in the days, in those days it was called the Department of War. Come on in. It was called the Department of War. Okay, they changed the name to the Department of Defense after World War I because they didn't want to have a Department of War in America. They said, we'll call it the Department of Defense instead, it's better, since we're all defending ourselves. And so, Samuel Langley was given $50,000 by the Department of War in 1900. Do you know what that would be worth today? It's, I don't know, about $2 billion. The purpose was, hey, we heard something about this flying machine. Okay? Why don't you go find out what this flying machine is and how do we build this flying thing? There were, you know what I'm talking about? Right, airplanes. There were no airplanes at the time. The Department of War gave $50,000 to Samuel Langley to go because they heard that maybe we can build a flying machine. Samuel Langley, with all his connections and all the scientists he knows and all the scientists like that. 2 years went by, and Samuel Langley is still recruiting more scientists, asking for more money, since money was no object. And he was working on this flying machine. Now it's 1903, 1902. A few hundred miles away from where Samuel Langley was doing this unbelievable experiment were two brothers. Who owned a bike shop, a bicycle shop. There were cars. Ford hadn't come up with a car yet. Most people either traveled by carreta or bicycle. The Wright brothers, two guys, they didn't have a high school diploma. They never even finished high school. Not a single person that worked for them had a high school diploma. There was no one from Harvard University or the Smithsonian. There was no War Department. And certainly, there was no one from the New York Times following them around to document what they did. These guys had a passion. And their passion was to build a flying machine. You've probably seen the first pictures of it. The guy looks like a bird today with the ailes, and then the guy sitting on that big bike with a huge wheel. For about a year, the proceeds, the money that came in from their bike shop went into developing these things that they worked on every day. And every afternoon, as they leave for the field to experiment and test their work, they would take 5 sets of everything. Because that's how many times they crashed every day. They would crash and they would do it again, and they would crash and they would do it again. 5, 6, 7 times every day. Until one day, in August of 1903, their flight took off. Two brothers. Between them, they don't even have 1/10 of the education of Samuel Langley, or one of his engineers. Do you know what happened to Samuel Langley the day the Wright brothers took flight? He quit. He quit. He could have easily said, hey, you guys discovered the first airplane. What technology do you need? How can I help you? How can we all make the world a better place? He quit. And why did he quit? Did Samuel Langley ever ask the question why? Why was he doing it? Was he doing it because he was convinced that he was contributing something to the world that's going to change the way the world works? Bringing continents together. It used to take immigrants, going from Europe to the United States 2 to 3 weeks to get it. It now takes them a day. Samuel Langley was in it for money, for riches, for fame. And had all the tools in the world, the best and the brightest, that money can buy. Then you have 2 guys who were in it because they loved it. It was their passion. They had no money. They had no scientists from MIT. They had no doctors from Harvard. They didn't have people from the Smithsonian Institute or the War Department behind them. I can give you 10 to 15 examples like this. A minute ago, I talked to you about Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. They started the 2 biggest companies we know today in their garage. In the garage. Passion. People who are passionate in life always ask why. Because when you ask why, you discover who you are and what's important to you. And when you discover what's important to you and how much you love something, nothing will stop. Nothing will stop. Yes, it's easy for me to say, because when I had to make that decision, as I told you, it was almost a blessing that my parents were illiterate, because they didn't know any better. My mother was happy if she had some tomatoes and peppers a day, and the cows had enough milk for them, because that was exactly how we ate. Let's go get some peppers and sit here. And that we were happy. We didn't know any better. Life is simple. And when life is simple, it gives you a chance to see your starting point. Because everything else is a bonus. Every day I open my eyes in the morning, it's a bonus. It is a bonus. Every time I look at a stranger, and this happened especially in 2011 when I came back. Walking down, she said, "Good morning." People walk up. What is wrong with us? He's talking in the street. He's happy. He's happy. Something is wrong with him. I'm not joking. It's the truth. It's the truth. Yes, I'm very happy. I'm very happy because my happiness doesn't revolve around me anymore. My happiness involves others around. Others I don't even know. To be honest, do I know you? I don't know you. Am I getting paid for this today? No. Can I get paid a lot of money from some other clients today? More than you know. But I'm very happy to be here. Because if I could leave just a little bit, just a little bit, maybe raise that question mark in your head. Just make you think about something. Then maybe you will begin to think differently. And see the world now from a different prism. And step back into a different perspective and reframe life, your life. And perhaps a light bulb will go off in your head. I understand the world we live in, Mama, Papa, I get all of it. I understand. I've been living here now for 3 years. I'm getting one of those continued education and life in Tunisia, because I left I was very young. Now I know what it's like to be an adult in Tunisia. I don't like it. I'm enjoying my life today because I failed. Let me rephrase that. I'm enjoying my life today because I failed. No, that still comes out the same. I failed so many times, I don't even remember how many. But every time I did, I was happy I did. I was still alive. I'm in good shape. My son is healthy. I'm healthy. I have something I didn't have before I failed. More knowledge of how not to fail the next time. My biggest enemy, when I entered into the business world, into the graduate school world, into the competitive world that is America, and I used to hate America. I demonstrated and got arrested here in the 1970s against America and what it did to our friends far away, Palestine and Israel. But then I learned some good things about Americans, about their schools, about how they think, about why they're successful. We hate them. Why do we hate them? Is it because they're good? I don't know. I have no idea. Is it because, we won't go into the political part of it, but let's focus on education and the experiences and the things we learn. The truth of the matter is, they are better than us in education, in entrepreneurship, in the pursuit of their goals. So what can we learn from them? There is no shame in learning from someone that's better than you. I learned a lot of things about how to accomplish goals, how to help others, how to work on projects, how to set timelines and deadlines and key performance indicators and succeed in the business world. How do I translate that so that it helps others along the way? Yes, so than me. I was desperate. I was beginning from nowhere. So I didn't really have a lot to lose. And it was that courage that I now see and teach about. And young people, step out of your comfort zone. And you've heard the expression, think out of the box? You've heard that expression. How the hell can you think out of the box when you're not in the box? You need to be in the box. To think, to be outside of the box. Think out of the box. What does it mean? I mean, you ask most people today, what does that mean? They probably don't know how to explain it. You need to be in an uncomfortable position to properly think out of the box. You need to have your back against the wall. You can't back. And you have nowhere to go. And that, all of a sudden, of course, is your creative juices. You become very creative when you're back against the wall and you can't think. So find out what your comfort zone is. Step out of it. Step out of your comfort zone. You'll never taste life as you really need to inside that comfort zone. Be different. Be different. You heard of Mark Twain? Mark Twain, a writer in the 19th century. It says, every time I find myself with the majority, I worry. And it's time for me to stop and reflect. Because it's easy to follow the majority. You don't think. You don't have to think. You don't have to work that hard. You just follow the majority. Somebody else. Be the one person that steps out and stops. Wait a minute. Why are we doing this? Why am I going there? Does it meet what I believe in? Once again, it's the why question that we so much hate to ask because the people who are asking so much hate to answer. So a lot of times they don't even know themselves. I dare you to ask your teachers today, one of your teachers, why are we studying this? How is this going to help me in 3 years? Sure. I'm serious. I'm a teacher. I teach the MBA program. I teach at a master's program. And if I don't convince my students of the answer, I give them an A, and they can leave for the semester, and I will still give them an A. I want you to ask your directors of programs, your student activity leaders if you have any, or your dean. Why am I studying in 2014 a curriculum that was designed in 1996 when I'm in a technology school? I don't know. It's a question for me to ask. I would ask that question. I don't know about Sup'Com, but actually I was at the meeting. And that was a good question to ask. Because the program that I was teaching last year, which I refused to teach, I taught my own program, was designed in 1996. We're talking about a top engineering school. These are the sort of questions that you need to ask. I'm not saying become a rebel like I was, but that will convince you, or at least give you an idea. It will challenge the system, challenge the status quo. And people who have succeeded and made a difference in their lives and the lives of others have challenged the status quo. You know what the status quo is? Status quo is when things, you don't want to touch anything. You just leave it as is because somehow there's an equilibrium there. I don't know how it's there or who decided, but it's there. So that's the status quo. Challenge the status quo. Don't accept things for just because that answer is not good enough. It's just because. I used to ask the question. Then I said, look, I taught a course 2 years ago at l'ENA, École Nationale d'Administration. And it was it's one of those recurring courses that the people who have graduated, they have to come back every year for 2 weeks. and do a course in leadership development, because that's my company, and what I teach is leadership development for leaders. And so these people are not typical students. They are 40, 50, 55 years old. They're the top positions in each ministry. That's not a politically appointed position. And I challenged them. I was younger than most of them. And I challenged them. Why do you do this? See, they don't know why they do it. Someone handed them these systems, these procedures. And that's how the Tunisian administration works. You will go, and I can guarantee you, if you go into the Tunisian administration, as I have students now doing their PFR and stuff like that with different CNSS, Sonet, STEC, all these different companies, I guarantee that you will be ready to commit suicide in about 3 years. Because it's a system that no one asks why. And people don't like people who ask why. And be courageous enough to be disliked because you ask why. And don't be afraid to be singled out. Don't be afraid to stand alone. Don't be afraid of them. Be the wolf, never be the sheep. Maybe I take great pride at being the wolf. And maybe I listened to Mark Twain because I read a lot of his books. And this is the greatest thing in the world, is to resist the temptation of society and maintain your identity no matter what. No matter what. If you have strong beliefs, and at your age, begin to ask the why, you develop a set of strong values. Strong values that are unshakable values. No revolution, no Assemblée Nationale, no speech from some polyester suit is going to change your mind. No, sir. And today, we're a society that's easily manipulated because we don't have strong values. Because we don't ask the why question. Because someone who doesn't believe in God all of a sudden pretends that he's a God-loving person and gets on television and trying to convince something different. When we ask why, we develop strong values. Those, I'm going to be honest, those people cannot manipulate us in any way, no matter what. Because we, the people, have a brain. We can think of our own. We're not sheep. We're not easily manipulated. And the future is in your hands. The future, don't be fooled. It's not in the hands of those people who have, they fought in the 60s and the 70s, the old regimes, education, politics, economy. But their time is gone. You are the leaders. You're the people. You're the ones with the power. But you need to ask yourselves, where do I want to go? What tools do I have? What values do I need to deliver? What do I believe in? What is important to me? Do I want to make money and have tons of money? That's your answer? The more power to you. My experience tells me that yes, you can get money, but not as a final objective. You follow your passion, you follow your goals, you stick with your values, your guiding values. They're the ligne rouge. You're not going to go because you have that. You will get the money along the way, and you will continue. Because money is not the final objective. It's you, the person. And today, I talk to young people like you about this, because this is the time. You can still change. You can still get better. And every day should be better than the last day, than the day before. You get old like me, it's too late. But for you guys, you are the hope of many generations to come. When you have You'll know what education and how you're going to educate them. You're not going to say, okay, well, just go to school and leave me alone. Whatever your teacher says is right. Whatever the system designs, what is the system? Who is the system? You are the system. You make the system. And if you don't realize all that, you have no right to complain. You are a sheep. You just follow. But I look around the room, I don't see any sheep. I see a lot of future sharp canine wolves, which is what you need to be. Because one last point I want to make here is regardless if you're one of those people who believes we're an Arab country, a Muslim country, a Mediterranean country, we're a country in 2014. You can today be chatting with someone in Russia. You could be playing chess with someone in the States. You could be selling your product to someone in Brazil. You could be taking a class from the University of California. Real time. Regardless of what we choose to be, Muslim, Arab, Mediterranean, whatever, we're a global country with smart people who are open to all cultures, religions, colors. That you already know. But you need to understand the people at the other end. What drives them? How can we make them be attracted to Tunisia? How can we make Tunisia and your educational system and the economics and the opportunities attractive to these other countries? When you, again, when you think about this, that means you've already asked yourself why. Again and again and again. If you remember nothing today, remember three little letters, W, H, Y. It's why. Why am I here today? Why are you guys here today? And on that note, I hope that I have at least asked more questions than provided answers. And that's what I do. I'm a troublemaker. I always ask questions. And today I've raised more questions in your head. Because you need to think. I cannot sit here and pretend to have the truth on everything. I've met some teachers who do that. They just stand here and lecture you for 2 hours and tell you what to do. I never do that. I've never done that. I never will do that. I will ask you questions to make you think. Because my best way is not your best way. What applies to me does not apply to you. I can't sit here and honest, with a straight face, and tell you the recipe that worked for me to be successful in the United States is the same recipe that I can give you here in Tunisia. It will not be the same. It's not the same. Everything is different. But I can tell you how I thought and the tools and how I work. So you can develop your own system, your own ideas. Because once you develop your own ideas and you're not adopting my ideas, they're yours forever. No one can take them away from you. And that's the whole point, is develop your own style, your own personality, your own way of thinking. That's your right, your obligation. No one can BS you. Oh, when the camera's up, I'll BS you. No one can BS you because they're yours. It's your brain. Put it to work. Don't let someone else do the thinking for you. God bless and good luck. Thank you. So, for a few minutes, how much time do we have? I have 5 minutes. Okay, 5 minutes. I can take questions. You have questions? You can ask me questions in Arabic and French, no problem. I get on. But I may not answer you in Arabic. But I understand. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask any questions you want to ask. Yes?
You said that you defended your values, but always, and especially in the United States, I think that that values are contradicted with the society.
With?
with the society there.
With study?
No.
Oh, society, I'm sorry, okay.
So what did you do back then, and how did you handle it?
You said values are what with society? Are contradicting each other?
Yes.
Values are contradicting with society. What did you mean by that?
The values of the society in the United States are different, are maybe even opposite with our values.
I don't agree with you entirely. Okay. Let's look at some. It's a great question. I love the question because maybe it'll help clarify some things. I went there and I was 18 years old. I have a son who's now 24 years old, 25 next month. I raised my son based on my values. Are they American values? I have no idea. They're my values. I can tell you, I cannot speak of American values, family values, because I don't really know what family. I mean, I didn't grow up, I wasn't born there, but I can tell you from observation. My ex-wife is American, okay? So I saw firsthand how an American woman raises her child. And if you call loving your child and teaching him how to be a good person, would you call that good value or bad value? It's a great value. I'll give you an example. Even one that will touch society and religion here today, since we're struggling with all of the society here. My ex-wife was Christian. I'm a Muslim. My son got to be 3 or 4 years old. And my ex-wife called on a Sunday and she says, "Hey, my mother and I are going to church. Do you mind if we take Jamal with us?" And I said, "What for exactly?" Now, let me just stop you there. I want to open parentheses. In my studies at the university, it's something I wish we would do more up here. Maybe they do now, I don't know. Every student in an American university has to take what is called core classes. Core meaning everybody takes the same core classes, and then you have specialty classes. Some of those, the social study classes, are religious. So I, for the first time in my life, after spending 2 years here at the university in Tunis, took studies about Judaism, Christianity, the 3 major religions. Islam, I didn't even do it home because I knew everything, But it was really interesting to see American kids wanting to learn about Islam, about the Quran, asking questions. For me, I was very curious about Christianity and Judaism. And part of our classes were also to go and visit religious services, because we have to write about this stuff, in the church. So I have to be honest with you, the first time I went to a church, I was a little, as you متربي لهنا for example, أمي قامت حاجة في بالها كل حاجة في on dehors de la Tunisie et vous يا حاجة قالت لي هاك وليد هاك مش تعرف اسمي ودي يا بنتي أنا ماشي ودي قالت لي يا مالك كل هاك So going to church, I was 19 years old, I'm sitting there with a notebook, I'm trying to be a little out so that people don't know this. I felt a little strange, I have to be honest with you. I'm a Muslim, sitting in church. I cannot tell you how stupid I felt 10 years later. I felt very stupid for feeling that. A Jewish friend of mine invited me to a wedding. And it's a great wedding day, and then I was. So I almost refused to go. I was trying to think of all the reasons in the world to cancel. I have to go. I'm doing all this stuff. And then I realized again, me, and I want to generalize, son knows about Christianity, about Judaism, all the major religions in the world. Because he took that to mean that the more he knew about different people, different religions, he is able to adapt. So those are the values that I and his mother taught him. I think they're good values. I don't think they contradict society. What we think today are societal American values, today, what we believe, are somewhat untrue, somewhat shaped by media, somewhat shaped by... I always encourage students to say, go and visit and see and talk to people. Make your own mind. This is that was the subject of this discussion today. We need to make up our own minds. Do you know, and I said this, and maybe now we're getting into something that's probably not the topic. Do you know that niqab and hijab is not an issue? There are more of them in America than there are in this country. Do you know that there are more mosques in the city where I live in Boston than in some major cities here in Tunis? Do you know there are more people walking in the than there are in Tunis? Do you know that in Al-Mulid, Wal-Eid, that churches and synagogues open up to Muslims to come and pray and eat? And it has nothing to do with American political power. What we need to do is distinguish. That's a power. That's politics. And they operate in a way that is, for them, what do they have to do to be number one? Let's all agree on that. Individuals, like my ex-wife, okay, raised their children to be loving of God first. Look at their constitution. يعمل في الارتيكل الآن مش تفتيحها من الوقت وهم in God we trust تلقاه في كل دولة. I sometimes think they're more religious than we are. And guess what? They believe in the same God we believe in. So values are what you teach your children and how to treat others and respect others and listen and so forth and so on. In 2011, September 2011, let me give you another example. My son, the afternoon of the incident of the New York, that same afternoon, I was in Toronto, Canada, and my son called me, and he was like 14, 15 years old. He was crying. I said, "Dad," he says, "the teacher says that I'm a terrorist." So I said, "Okay, Jamal, come down. Tell me what happened." My ex-wife is Irish American. So the son has a mother who's Irish American and a father who's Arab, Muslim. So the teacher, a lot of people reacted that day because it just looks like the media made it look like Arabs attacking Muslims, attacking Americans. So the teacher, being how he is, he overreacted. He looked at my son and says, your mother is Irish, the IRA, the Irish Republican Army. And your father is Arab, so he says, you're a double terrorist. And then my son didn't think it was funny. And so he called me up. So I came home. And I tried not to overreact. So the next morning I got in my car and rode to his school. And my ex-wife, she goes, because she knows, sometimes I'm very, as you see now, sometimes I'm not. she took the day off. She came to the school because she goes, oh my gosh, I hope he doesn't do something crazy. And when I was driving to school, I was going to do something bad that teacher. Because I was thinking of the psychological damage and the profiling that he inflicted on my son. But then I sat in the parking lot of the school before I went inside. And something I learned since to do is to just take five. So I took a deep breath 3 or 4 times. And I went into the school. And I was sitting there in the office of the doyen, director, and my lack of, everyone anticipated that I would act in a certain way. Because I said, I would only prove to them how emotional and irrational we Arabs are. Because that's exactly what they're looking for. Imagine if I reacted in such a way that, oh, jump on that kid, and attack that guy. That would be further proof. Look, see? These people are animals. Look at them. They can't even behave while in school. So I decided I'm going to teach him a lesson in civility. And I sat him down. And I happened to be a student of war history. By the way, I'm a mathematician by training. But I love to read. And there was a moment in my life where I read almost every single thing about war history. And I gave that man and the director and some other parents a lesson on Islam and war history. And the teacher asked, not the teacher, the school director asked me to come and give lecture to the other students, American students, who lacked knowledge about our culture and our society. And I did 2 or 3 times. And there were more parents in those classes than students. And you should see how many hugs I got from the parents. Thank you, Mr. Saban. Not just for them, not just for their kids, but for them. American parents are no different than your mom and your dad and me and anybody else. American politics, it's something entirely different. I don't defend American politics. I disagree with a lot of American politics. I want to instill some values. Don't take me wrong here. Values of bringing up children in our children. Hard work, dedication, entrepreneurship, thinking, how to study, how to prepare. I wish we were more like that. We were victims of 60 years, and maybe even before that. I can only speak since the end of the 90s. Of other people thinking for us. And in trying to do so, they have taken away our best assets, our brains. Our brain no longer functions sane. Our brains today, when we graduate, I speak from experience. I teach the same level students here and in the United States. They're not smarter than us. I teach the master students in business administration, leadership, management, microeconomics, mathematics, you name it. Okay? I saw kids at Harvard University. I was at Harvard University. I don't find them smarter than we are. I find that they have tools that we don't have. And those tools, they're here. They begin when they're young, at home. If I could only list one, it would be risk-taking. If I could only list another one, it would be encouraging your son or daughter when he fails. I'll give you an example. What happens if you tomorrow come home with a grade of Sup'Com?
A lecture.
Well, I put that. I'm so glad. Huh? I can tell you, and I've seen my son. My son, like me, hated when he was younger, hated reading. And I hated reading, I remember that. If it wasn't for math or physics, I would be sure. don't worry about it. You said to her, let's work together on how tomorrow is going to be 10. How tomorrow. I had someone, a company that I worked with, his son came home with this set to her. كيف عملت؟ قالت كيفاش تروا هذا وانا علاش؟ Do you understand? We should always find a way to encourage even the person. There is something. There is one little thing that went right for that person who got set to her. Find it and build on it. Find it and build on it. And you will see how you can easily get rid of the negative by building on the positive. حتى واحد كمشكلة يكون جماعة. سألت أهلها تشبيك تزاي. أنا أمي she does the same thing to me. I call her after 1 week and said وليدي إيش نحوالك للبيت؟ تياك معش تطلب تياك كنشي. We're always focusing. We think by being critical, we're encouraging or we're pushing. Because we believe in push. Okay? We push our kids in everything. We're never satisfied. How they dress, how they eat, what time they come home at night, their grades. Find the positive and build on that, and you will see you get rid of the negative in no time. And that's one of the differences in the values that I want to adopt as a teacher today. I'm in the middle still of correcting exams, right? And they're all terrible. But when I walk into class and I say, okay, here it is, here's an analysis, this is how we can make it better. This is how we can work on improving it. Because your grades today, and this might be a surprise to you, your grades today mean nothing as to how well you're going to be as a person in 2 or 3 years once you leave the school. You want me to say that again to your administrator? Look in the camera. Your grades today, I'm serious. It's not the grade that you get in this class or next that will decide how well you're going to be or what a good person you're going to be or how successful you are. Let me just get into the business side of it, okay? 75%, have you heard of Fortune 100? It's a magazine that's published every year in the United States called Fortune magazine, Fortune. And every year they publish the 100 top companies in the world. You find Microsoft and Google, all the companies that you know. A study was conducted in all of these companies. Mostly, there are like 5 or 6, there's Airbus, or the 5 or 6 French companies, mostly Americans and then some Japanese companies. A study was conducted in these companies, and they found, in terms of senior management, the people who run these companies, they all graduated with mediocre grades. Mediocre grades. The people who graduated in the top of their class are all working for the people who graduated with mediocre grades. It's very easy to explain. It actually makes sense. And I don't know if you see why, and there is a relationship. Conversely, of your grades, you spend so much time. I'm going to give you an example of, one of my theses, I did a comparison between the grandes écoles françaises and the grandes écoles américaines. They do prépa, and then they go to école centrale, mostly, or Pont-Chaussée, or école normale. By the time they graduate école centrale, they have been selected to be the elite of the elite. From high school, prépa to école centrale. They are told and treated, and everything they do is that you are the best of the best, and don't you forget it. You're an expert. You're the top expert in your field. There is no one like you. And guess what? Tomorrow you're running 30 people. It's not what you studied. You have no idea how to even friendly, let alone run a team of 30 or 40 people. We have something that we inherited from the French, and it's not very good. Because the statute of someone in a company is always based on how smart that person is. The top engineer runs the engineering department. The top doctor runs the doctor department. The top financial analyst runs the finance department. These people spend 90% of their awakened hours studying. They don't know how to say hello. They don't know how to make friends. They don't know how to go birthday parties. They don't know how to date girls. They don't know how to lie. They don't know anything. And that's what it takes to run companies. It's not the expertise. It's your know-how. It's making relationships and bonding and empathy and motivation and communication. That's what makes these companies successful. The experts end up running departments. And that's why the experts end up working for the person who works in the business. ودي ما يعمل جزء من المينيمم ينفع. Those are the people that actually end up being the top CEOs. To be a top entrepreneur, you know how to talk, you know how to sell, you know how to manipulate. I don't mean manipulate in a bad way. If you're an expert, you're a genius in math, in physics, in chemistry, in research, you have not had time to improve your skills on all of the other stuff. Because being in the top leadership has something to do with mastering the métier, but a lot to do with people. And so that's why, I don't even know how we got here. But yeah, any other question? Yes, sir.
Something about your own experience, first experience in leadership at the age of 23.
My first experience with leadership?
Is in the company with 2,000 employees.
Okay. You're talking about a company out in Canada?
Yes.
Sup'Com. 7,000 employees. It was not easy. And I knew most of their names. That's the difference between an okay leader and a great leader. I didn't say great leader. but seriously, it was in the field, by the way, that I didn't even study. So I knew how to deal with people. I knew how to make people do what they needed to do to succeed. I had a relationship with the guy that was making $5 an hour, the same relationship with my assistant who was making $450,000. As a matter of fact, I had a better relationship with that guy than with that guy. I knew his name, his wife's name, and his kids' names. I made sure that I knew the birthdays of his kids. And that I made sure that when his wife got sick, that I sent him a card, not my secretary, or I called him. That's what makes great leaders great leaders. Eisenhower, when receiving the people that were there to congratulate him for winning the Democratic primary, you know how the elections work in the States, they have primaries, Democrats and Republicans. So he won the primaries for the Democrats. And so all these people were there to congratulate Mr. President. They're all kissing up, so you see it on TV. 650 people went in front of him. He remembered the names of every single person because he met them during the campaign. And all 650 voted for him. I'll give you another example, a better example. It's called charisma. During the Victorian times of England, when Queen Victoria in the 18th century, there were two gentlemen running for Prime Minister of England. In Victorian times of England, England was the superpower of the world. They controlled something like 60% of the world. I don't remember the names of these two gentlemen, but there was a female journalist, the first female journalist in England. It was 18-something, She had the pleasure of going out to dinner with the two final candidates of Prime Minister. One night she went out to dinner with this gentleman, and the next night she went out to dinner with this next gentleman. I think one of them was Gladstone. I can't remember the name of the other guy. We'll call him John. So the media asked her the next day, 2 days before the election, what was it like? You went out to dinner with Mr. Gladstone and John. And she says, I was having dinner with Mr. Gladstone. I felt like he was the smartest man on earth. But I had dinner with Mr. John, and I felt like the smartest woman on the face of the earth. Who do you think won the election? Who do you think won the election? John. John won the election. Gladstone talked about how important he was, how smart he was, how good he was for the country. Gladstone, John, made her feel the most intelligent woman on the face of the earth. That's charisma. Charisma is not about us. It's about how we make you feel. Great leaders. And today, charisma is mistaken for something other than that. It's, who do you think? You probably have an idea of who charismatic leaders are. Really think about why you think they're charismatic. And you'll come back to the same conclusion. We think someone is charismatic because how we feel listening to that person. We feel so alive. We feel like we want to jump into the screen of that television and touch it. We say that person is charismatic. They don't talk about themselves or about how smart they are, how good looking they are, and all the plans they have. Martin Luther King was a charismatic leader, a very charismatic leader. Martin Luther King never spoke about how smart he was and the plan he has for civil rights movements and to bring them equal rights to voting and all of this stuff. He simply said, I have beliefs. I believe. I believe. I believe. I believe. I believe we should be equal. I believe we should do this. I believe. That was the why. That was him. He believed. And people believed what he believed. And that's why they all showed up on that hot day in August 1963. They showed up for themselves because they believed what Martin Luther King believed. That's charisma. That's asking the why question. That's not saying, come with me, Black African Americans. I have a 12-point plan for us so that by 1968 we will have equal rights. No. It wasn't a black versus white issue. It was people who believed what Martin Luther King believed. 25% of the people who showed up that day were white people. That's charisma. That's leadership. That was your question. You know, and so it's not about the smartest. Martin Luther King wasn't the smartest. As a matter of fact, he said some pretty dumb things. You know, but people believed what he believed. There was no internet or website to go into that day to check what time that meeting was, the I had to be. It was all the people who believed that the world should be equal. Martin Luther King had one message. There are two powers in this world. The power of mankind and the upper power, God's power. And he said that unless both are equal, there will always remain injustice in this world. We, the people, need to make sure to execute the power of God and make us all equal in the eyes of God. That was his message. That's what he believed and thought. To eliminate those injustices and that gap. It's as simple as that. Our politicians today fail in all categories. In charisma, in translating what that higher power said, versus what is done. They read and say something, they do something totally different. There's no credibility. And when you lose credibility in someone, how can you trust them? How can you say, I am your follower, you are my leader? You're not paid to follow them, you follow them voluntarily. Would you follow someone you don't trust? That's the problem we have today. There's a little contradiction between what's being said and what's being done. I don't want to hold you here too long. If there are no other questions, I can talk and talk and talk. I'm paid to talk, so I can talk a lot, but I don't want to hold you up. So, you can reach me. Reggie has my contacts through Facebook if you have any questions. I'll be glad to help in any way I can. I wish you the best. I really believe in you. One of the reasons why I came back to this country, because I truly believe that you are the future of this country. I have dedicated a lot of my time and effort in talking to as many of you as possible. I've held 60 seminars and conferences now in the last 2.5 years, all the way from Zab to Benin. I try to give it my time and my knowledge and my experience, and I do hope that I've helped it in some way. You are a smart man. Put that intelligence to work. That's all. That's all I ask of you. Make up your own mind. Don't live in someone else's world. This is someone else's world. Create your own world. Your own world is as good, if not better, than theirs, because it's yours. With all of its deficiencies, it's your world. No matter what it is, it's yours. What you eat, how you dress, the job you take, the friends you keep, that's your world. How you think,